Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jeffrey Reddick.
This is Dexter from The
This is
Offspring.
Nathan East.
This is Sebastian Younger.
This is David Labb.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
I'm Krista Verno.
This is Ryan Sick.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, I'm Mark Fowley.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero, Mark Valley, and Pete A. Turner.
And we have a guest judge with us who came up with the idea for this Clash of the Titans. Our guest judge is Scott Burford.
Good morning.
He has, in the red corner, the third album and the one that vaulted them into the Billboard Top 10, Damn the Torpedoes by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. It spent 7 weeks at number 2 on the album chart and just could never quite dethrone Pink Floyd's The Wall. Now, if you got to run into something that you can't pry out of number 1, well, it might as well be The Wall. It was recorded mostly at Sound City and Van Nuys on the legendary Neve 8028 console that gave the world more than 100 gold and platinum records and that now belongs to Dave Grohl. And for anybody who's seen the documentary Sound City, that's the console. The one our friend Wes Mabey talked about in his episode of the Break It Down show, the one that he would put up with to work with Dave Grohl. He doesn't like those Neve consoles. Anyway, Damn the Torpedoes was produced by Tom Petty and Jimmy Iovine. Only the second album for Iovine, and the first was Easter by Patti Smith. It established him as having a golden ear, and of course he's been involved in over 250 albums since then, and he's a gazillionaire, I think, officially.
I think it's a gazillion.
Yeah. So, and then Tom Petty, of course, became Tom Petty. In the blue corner is a classic in music history, Hotel California by the Eagles. It's a juggernaut of rock and roll, a standard bearer of lyric poetry, and a cluster bomb of pop culture, and one that really needs very little introduction because it sold, I think, 230 bazillion copies.
Yeah.
Right? Something like that.
Plus or minus.
Yeah. So let's see what Richard has to say about them. Hey, Richard.
Thanks, guys, and what a album fight do we have tonight. This is a battle of Hall of Famers versus Hall of Famers. Let's look at who we've got here. Released in 1979, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' third studio album, Damn the Torpedoes. This was their first album to hit the Billboard Top 10 album charts and sat at number 2 behind Pink Floyd's The Wall for 7 weeks. It featured 2 of Petty's biggest hits in Refugee and Don't Do Me Like That, and helped build his commercial and critical success. Here the songwriting is still a little raw, but there is kind of a Dylan through the slice of life songwriting lens of a Springsteen kind of vibe going to these songs. This is some of Petty's great work. Now it's up against Hotel California. This is the 1976 fifth album by the Beatles, and the first album to feature Joe Walsh as guitarist. This thing is a juggernaut of popularity. 32 million copies sold worldwide. 2 number 1 singles in Hot Hotel California and The New Kid in Town. It topped the album charts itself, won 2 Grammys, and it was pretty much vomited all over classic rock radio even to this day. I mean, Christ, how many rock stations played Life in the Fast Lane at 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon, signaling everyone to get ready and party on the weekend? I mean, look, I can't do this any longer. Look, I've said a bunch of nice stuff about it, but I have to say it. I've got to. God, I hate the Eagles. I didn't always. I mean, there was a time when I loved this shit. If you were in high school and college in the 80s, you heard this a lot. And I mean a lot. I heard it so many times now it triggers my gag reflex. It's like trying to eat oysters after you've had food poisoning from eating shellfish on a month that doesn't have an R in it. Here's the best way I can kind of explain this, okay? You know, it's like that couple that have been married for like 50 years, and every time he eats soup, he slurps so loud she wants to drive the car off a bridge on the way home from the deli. That's the Eagles to me. It's a term I used a lot before, and I'm going to bring it up again, but the Eagles are the poster boys for Dockers rock. You know, just chilling with my buds from work, wearing our stylish chinos, drinking our mass-produced American Pilsners, while grilling free-range, organic, GMO-free turkey burgers on a gas grill in the backyard while listening to, you guessed it, the fucking Eagles. It's going to be a close one. There are heavy-hitting songs here. Look out for that first round. They are both coming out swinging. Like always, it's going to be the fillers that will make this fight. Almost a coin flip. I say 5 rounds to 4. My guess is Hotel California, but my heart hopes, really hopes, for Damn the Torpedoes. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Richard. What do you think, Pete?
Well, I have no idea. You know how we do this. You go in and we try to blank our minds, try to really hard wash out any kind of influence. The Eagles are one of those bands, though, that people tend to love or hate, and that means you're good enough to be hated. So, being ignored is way worse than being hated. So I think we're going to see what happens when people have to give up their love or their hatred for the band and really analyze it. I'm excited to do that. And I have no idea who's going to win. I know last week we had a razor-thin margin with Journey versus Jimi Hendrix, and I was shocked to see Journey not quite pull it through, but absolutely be in the fight the entire time. I can't imagine this fight will be any different.
Yeah, this is about razor-thin margins, and it's about sequence. This is one of those things where, you got Marvin Hagler and Tommy Hearns, and sometimes one of them gets tired in round 5 for whatever reason, and that's the one that makes the difference. And so, yeah, this is a battle royal. Let's go with round 1. Refugee versus Hotel California. Scott, start us off.
All right. Well, hey, when you hear the first notes of Refugee and you hear Stan Lynch's drums, you immediately know, wow, new producer, right? Because, Tom Petty's first 2 albums were good, but the sound quality wasn't. It was really kind of muddy.
Yeah.
And it needed improvement. Well, that's exactly what happened when Jimmy Iovine came in. So immediately you're like, wow, this is a whole new sound experience.
Dawn of a new day.
Tons of energy. It's a great tune, right? Refugee is, historically, if you look back, it's one of his 25 probably best songs of a guy who has over 200 or 300 songs, right?
Yeah.
Refugee is up there. But Hotel California.
Right? Here we go.
That's like you're trying to do Battle with Stairway to Heaven or some other song that has absolutely become iconic for the last 40 years, right?
Yeah.
I can't sit here and add anything about Hotel California that hasn't already been said, other than so many people. It crossed over into so many people's ears over 40 years. How can you possibly take on a titan like that? I don't know if you can. Refugee's an awesome song. But Hotel California is a once-in-a-lifetime song. Most bands never get the chance to record a song like that. The Eagles did. They came up with it, and that turned them into multi-millionaires, maybe close to billionaires.
Yeah.
So Hotel California, in my mind, has to take this first round 10-9.
Pete?
Yeah, this is incredible. I love Jimmy Iovine's influence on the album. Him coming out and saying, this is where we start. Refugee, for me, I agree. This is a pillar song from their catalog, and it makes all the difference in the world when you start this way. Same notes. Stan Lynch lets you know. Mike Campbell comes in and plays the guitar, and Tom's lyric is super, super strong. This is a great way to start off a very, very strong album, but.
And it's a big but.
I talk often, when you write a bunch of great songs, every now and then a song will have enough exit velocity to get above that level. And these are songs like One, like Yesterday. These are songs that are they're better than perfect. They capture everybody's imagination. Nobody knows what this song really means, and yet everybody understands what it means to them. That's a big, big, big pull to be able to pull that off. I was in Costa Rica, and I was just hanging out, drinking, having fun on vacation, and this guy was playing songs on a guitar, and he and I were swapping the guitar back and forth, and he's like, do you know the words to this song? And he didn't play Refugee. He played Hotel California. This song is a worldwide song, and it's fantastic. I do love, and I know I'm going to maybe steal this from you, John, so I apologize if I do, but I am doing it on purpose. You love, and I love the inside jokes inside of songs, and when when the Eagles respond to Steely Dan's mention of their name on Steely Dan's album, and Don Henley throws in the line "Steely Knives" and it's spelt Steely with the double ELY, that's just extra gravy on top of the gravy. This is a world-class song, and any song other than Refugee, maybe in the entire Tom Petty catalog, goes and takes a knee. I mean, it takes a catalog supporting song to be able to withstand the blow from Hotel California. I've got this round 10-9 Eagles.
All right. Well, all three of us got sucked in to both of these albums so quickly, and my notes are about Stan Lynch's opening too, and just the quality of the sock to the jaw that is the opening of Refugee. I was really taken by the contrast. Hotel California starts with the stirring drama of Don Felder and Glenn Frey and their dual 12-string intro. And then you got Randy Meisner's sensitive, masterful bass line, Joe Walsh with a completely different guitar sound. His guitar sings like a bird. And then Don Henley. The thing about Don Henley is he really doesn't get his due as a drummer because he's the lead vocalist. And the thing about his drumming is it may not, he's not Billy Cobham, he's not Stuart Copeland, but he's the guy who has the most thoughtful thing to say at just the right time. And that guy is the unsung hero of every conversation. There are a lot of people who can be flashier and all of that stuff, but Don Henley lays it down and he says the perfect thing all the time. With the difference between these two songs, I think in the way that it sucks you in, once the lyrics begin and Don Henley starts with, the warm smell of colitas, whatever in the fuck colitas is, and then my head grew heavy and my sight grew dim. I had to stop for the night. He's telling a story in a way that, like you guys said, this song just transcends. Bands achieve greatness without even getting near a song like this. So, yeah, I had to give it to Hotel California too. Well, okay, we're unanimous on round one. Pete, start us off. Round two, Here Comes My Girl versus New Kid in Town.
Man, so one of the things that I've noticed when we do these things is certain songs stick in your head and just won't get out. And New Kid in Town was that song for me, this album. I listened to all the tracks, some of them several times. Sometimes I end off 3 songs away looking for ways to look for the separation because these albums are so close. You do owe it to both albums to really dig in. This takes me hours to do and thousands of words of writing to get there. So when a song sticks, there's something there for me that I'm trying to pay attention to. And I just want to take a second, slow down and say, fuck, man, I really am sad that Glenn Frey is gone because he is such a masterful storyteller, lyricist. I love his voice. I love everything about who he is, and it's really sad for me that we never got a chance to have him on the show because I would have loved to have thanked him for all the great work that he did. New Kid in Town is a great song. It's those, I wrote down this lyric, it's those restless hearts that never mend. Man, that's, because they just move on to the next thing. JJ and I talk about this a lot, in that, you just keep moving past the pain. You don't let the pain catch up to you, and that's what a restless heart is. It's such a powerful lyric, and I love it. The distortion on the guitar when that comes in at certain times to kind of create a dialogue within the song.
Oh, boy.
You have to listen to it. Yeah. It's great, and it's super pretty. Some people hate this song, and I was trying to decide why, and I think it's kind of like, the Eagles are kind of like the Winklevoss twins, where they're too good-looking, they're too moneyed, they're too well-spoken, and everybody's like, fuck those guys in this goddamn perfect, catchy song that won't leave my head. I love
Winklevoss twins.
That's what it's got to be. I mean, when you see Don Henley sing, and you hear it, you're like, oh my God, come on, forget about it. The faded drums are really cool too, and I don't have the proper verbiage. I'm sure you do, but I just love this song, and this is Southern rock pushed south, so it's like Mexican Southern rock, and I love it. I love it. However, Here Comes My Girl for me is a better song.
Oh, okay. What a setup.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, I do love New Kid in Town, and that's how close. This is the thing I'm trying to make about it. That's how close this is when I hear this and the song's, you know, and it starts out like I love that. When he also has a dialogue in the conversation. He's like, "Oh man, I gotta work. Here comes my girl." You know, so he goes to this like drudgery, but then his girl brings him out. And if you are in love, or if you have someone that in your life, it just resonates, and it's fantastic. And you know, you want to be that dude that has that girl, and you want to be like, "Yeah, I get it." So for me, 10-9 Petty.
Scott?
Well, Pete, first of all, I want to echo your sentiments about Glenn Frey. I really think he was the heart and soul of the Eagles.
Yeah.
And losing him, it just can't be overstated. And this was a great song for him. I also think it was the most honest song the Eagles ever wrote, because the way I interpret this song is that you better enjoy it while you have it, because it could be gone tomorrow, and there's somebody coming up that could knock you off your spot.
Yep.
And it's just that realization that you go, wow, okay, these guys are really honest about understanding what is going on in their lives at the time. I mean, these guys are about to take, you know, the rock and roll world by storm. It's what they always wanted. They wanted to be rock stars. They didn't want to be country rock stars. They wanted to be rock stars, right? So New Kid in Town is sort of telling that story. And it's an awesome tune, right? It went to #1 on the Billboard 100. It won a Grammy. I mean, you can say a lot of good things about New Kid in Town, right?
Yep.
And it's the second song on an amazing new album by this group. But, like Pete, I go,
Here we go.
I'm setting you up again, right?
But
So, you know, what a great opportunity of sitting here and talking about these albums with you guys is it forced me to take a new, fresh look, trying to listen to these albums again with a fresh set of ears. Because I'll be honest, Damn the Torpedoes was like the 5th album I ever bought when I was like 15 years old.
Yeah.
So I've been listening
That
to
counts.
it for a hell of a long time, and have to go back and try to pretend I'm listening to it for the first time and really try to pick up things I missed earlier. Well, I didn't miss things about Petty's vocals on this song, but when I really went into evaluation mode, Petty's vocal on Here Comes My Girl is the best vocal he ever did on any song. And, I mean, think about who he is and what he's done. When he goes from talking to singing to screaming and back to talking and singing, he's got 3 different emotions that he's coming up with on this song. And as a listener, you're just going, wow. You know, it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And so Here Comes My Girl is a 10-9 winner because I think it's one of the top 5 songs Tom Petty ever wrote, and it's definitely his best vocal he ever did.
That is a hell of a statement. I think I started off again with Stan Lynch, and I love Stan. In fact, I love every drummer that's ever been in the Heartbreakers, and that would be Stan Lynch, and then Dave Grohl for one Saturday Night Live appearance, and then Steve Ferrone, who's always been one of my favorites. But Stan Lynch rounds the band up, and they get going again. It is a great tune with such dynamics in the vocals, but okay, here we go. I love big, tall Amazonian women. Okay, my wife is taller than I am, and I encourage her to wear heels whenever we go out. And I thought I died and went to heaven the day that Pete and I walked into Gabby Reese's house. And I saw her statuesque height and impressive wingspan, and I mean that with all the respect in the universe, because I love Gabby and I don't want Laird to punch me in the face. The origin of that sentiment about tall Amazonian women, I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to tell you what it is. When I was in the 1st grade at Johnston H. Cooper Elementary School, I would walk home from school in the first couple weeks. You know, I had just moved here from Guam, and moving to a hard scrabble town like Vallejo from Guam, I wore puka shells to school. And I didn't have any idea why everybody else wasn't wearing them. But I was a stranger in a strange town, and then here comes New Kid in Town, and I walked home, and the girl who lived around the corner from me saw that I kind of looked lost, I guess, and she said, "No, I know where you're going, let's go," and we would walk home together, and there was I can't say there were any romantic inklings. I was 6 years old, but she was a foot taller than I was, and I felt security. And walking home with her kind of gave me a start in a new life. And New Kid in Town accompanied that whole experience. So for me, I have an emotional attachment to that song. And its honesty has meant something different to me at a variety of stages in my life. So I think that's one of the things that when you can capture the human experience, Here Comes My Girl does that too. When you look back at it being one of the first records that you bought, Scott, and I know you've been listening to this record we've all grown up with this record. This is the kind of song, and it's a matchup of these two songs that are the kind of song that has you at a different stage in your life. It touches you in a different reason. But I went New Kid in Town 10-9.
Wow. All right. So
yeah, mostly for the emotional attachment, I guess.
Well, and that's meaningful. It's hard to just toss that aside when you're thinking about a great song, right? Because you know,
6-foot women.
You can talk about right. Well, yeah, you can't forget that. But you talk about all the great attributes of a song. You can delve into it musically in terms of the chords and the instruments and who's playing it. But then I think what's really important for most people is what does the song do to you physically and mentally?
Because the virtuosity means nothing if it doesn't grab you.
Most people aren't musicians, but most people listen to get something out of it that helps them through the day.
Yeah, right.
And that the memories mean everything when it comes to thinking about these types of albums.
Okay. Well said. Round 3. Even the Losers versus Life in the Fast Lane. I'm going to start this one off, and I'm going to be really brief, because Even the Losers is a song that we can all relate to at that time in your life where you just needed somebody to give you that kick in the ass and say, all right, here we go, get going. And I appreciate that about the song. But ultimately, Even the Losers is a song about losers, and Life in the Fast Lane is a song about fucking and cocaine. 10-9 Life in the Fast Lane. Take it away, Scott.
Oh man, it's so hard to follow. What I completely agree with what you're saying there, John, but maybe for different reasons. So we're getting into this emotional, talking about how a song reaches you emotionally, and Even the Losers reach me emotionally because it makes me think about every girl in high school and college who didn't want to date me, and there were quite a few. Right? So this song, since I've been listening to it for a long time, it just kind of spoke to me. It's like a don't give up song. Yep. It's like, yeah, you know what? No now, but someday it's going to be yes. And even the losers will get lucky sometimes. So for me, it was a very emotional song. But like you, I look at Life in the Fast Lane, and I think about not just what it meant for the Eagles or what kind of song it was. I mean, it is about what you talked about, right? But it became an iconic song because of simply the title. You could title the crappiest song in the world, Life in the Fast Lane, and people are going to want to hear it.
Yeah, right?
Well, what's that song about?
Ooh.
You want to know, really? You can't figure it out by the title? I mean, it's just an incredible song. It is completely overplayed, and part of the issue I had here in evaluating this song is that I really don't like listening to it anymore because I've heard it so many times I'm sick of it.
Wow.
But it deserves, in my book, it deserves to win 10-9 because of the impact that it's had on the music business in the last 40 years.
Wow. Pete?
Well, when I look at Even the Losers, I hear a proto-shoegazer song. This guy doesn't have the self-confidence, and he's not the same dude that Here Comes My Girl is. He's a different dude. So he doesn't have that swagger. He doesn't have, the lovers like Jack and Diane, the Jack's Chance kind of thing. He's a different dude, and he falls for the first, girl that is sort of, in his... not even in his wheelhouse because she's out of his league, but she goes for it. But she goes for it because it's the fucking 70s, and why not? Let's go do this. And oh no, this is not a relationship. This is a one-time thing. And he's like,
but I'll take it.
Yeah,
it's
better than not having it at all.
I'll take it.
That's right.
Yeah. So this is the band really establishing how good they are. I mean, this is standard rock. At least early generation rock and roll formula. 3 choruses, the verse 3 times, repeat the verse 2 times at the end of the song, and bust out and get out. The formula is there. This is like a classic Aerosmith song, where it's like A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, hit. They've done that with this song, but did a little bit better, seemed to capture that magic, and it's a fantastic song. It's just not as good as Life in the Fast Lane. And I think this round and Hotel California show what happens. This is not a greatest hits album, by the way, fellas. This is Hotel California. And yet here it is. Like, it's hit after hit after hit. And it makes me worry a little bit about the Heartbreakers' ability to withstand the Eagles at their best, because it happened once, but I don't know if it's going to keep happening. For me, this is what... And here's the difference. As great as all of the Heartbreakers are, Tom Petty is going against Glenn Frey. He's going against Glenn Frey. He's going against Don Henley. And then Joe Walsh shows up at the plate. And he does not need any help to kick someone's ass. So he comes out with that guitar, and he says things so differently than the rest of the band did. The day they decided to bring him to the band was probably the best decision they ever made. It was a multi-million-dollar decision that was going to give them the ability to tour in perpetuity, and that is fantastic. Henley can deliver like nobody else. His voice is just great. And like you said, John, this song is about cocaine, the right pills, the right people, and just living life in the moment. Life in the Fast Lane? Fuck yeah. All right. They win. 10-9.
So when you talk about the formulaic nature of a rock and roll song, even the Losers, it does do those things, but do you think they said, okay, well, we have to fill this in like a haiku? Or, because I think that we have an opportunity here to look at a song that has a sequence that everybody else has, but it's really not that much different from when you eat a great meal and it starts with an appetizer. It starts with that little bite of food that's compliments of the chef when you walk in, and it gets you excited, and then you have, your appetizers, and your courses go through, and you have a cheese course and dessert at the end, and that's formulaic too, but you know what? It's formulaic because it hits home. And when I see that, if I look at it and analyze it from that direction, you can say that about these Tom Petty songs, but he is a rock and roll songwriter, and I think he feels it out that way.
Yeah, I don't think it's a negative thing. I think it's just indicative of what that formula is, and the Eagles are more comfortable getting out of that formula. The thing I often struggle with these kind of songs, especially like in the Nirvana Challenge, was when you repeat the same hook over and over and over again, and someone else is doing better, then it does become a problem. I think if this song wasn't so firmly in the, verse, chorus, verse, verse, chorus, chorus kind of format, I might have something more for it. But also it went up against Life in the Fast Lane, which is an incredible song. So I don't know. I definitely pay attention to that, though, if it stands out to me.
Your comment about having heard this song so many times, Scott, that is not something that I thought about when I did this analysis, and I think that that's something that might come up at some point. That's going to bug me about a song somewhere down the line. I didn't think of it this time, but at some point there is going to be an overplay component to a song that's I'm going to have to dock it.
Yeah, and when you're talking about an album like Hotel California that has the sales and the airplay it's had over the last 40 years, it's really an important issue when you're evaluating them.
Yeah. I think that plays to what you said, Pete, about the Eagles being a band that's hated.
Yeah.
Because what about them is there to hate? Like the Winklevoss twins. This week I fell in love with Joe Walsh again.
Boy.
I had almost forgotten. So that's what this exercise did for me. Round 4. Shadow of Doubt versus Wasted Time. Scott?
I don't have a lot to say about Shadow of a Doubt, mainly because I think it is just a straightforward Tom Petty song, and it doesn't resonate to me like Even the Losers and Here Comes My Girl or even Refugee. Mm-hmm. So it's the 4th best song of Tom Petty's that we've gone through at this point.
Right.
But what he's come up with is a killer side of music, and this fits in perfectly with what he's doing. Now, it's all pretty much straightforward rock and roll, but that's what he's here for. This point in his career. It's his third album, and this is the one where he breaks out. He needs to do what he does well and do a lot of it.
Yeah.
And that's what Shadow of a Doubt is. It's more of the same type of rock and roll song that we're hearing from Tom Petty. It's not as special as the first 3 songs that come before it. That's probably why it's put where it is on the album. Mm-hmm. But it's still an excellent song. But then you think about Wasted Time. Well, if you're talking about albums in the 70s, they all had to have some killer ballad, right? It's not necessarily a power ballad, but it's a song to get the chicks involved too, right? Because you're not necessarily going to grab them with Life in the Fast Lane. But this song...
They're going to pretend they don't like it anyway.
We'll find out later about that. But Wasted Time is really a good ballad, and the Eagles are at a confident point in their career where they think they can pull off pretty much anything. So this is it's a great song, right? And we've heard it for 40 years and going, well, when you listen to it, it comes at the perfect time in the album, I think, because you got the frenzy of Hotel California, a little bit mellower with New Kid in Town, and then you get Life in the Fast Lane, and you're all amped up. And it's perfect time for Wasted Time.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about sequencing and where songs fall, and you alluded to this earlier, John, I think Wasted Time is in the perfect spot on this lineup to beat Shadow of a Doubt based on the kind of song it is. So to me, 10-9 for Wasted Time.
Wow, great analysis. Pete.
Yeah, thanks a lot for ruining my stuff, Scott.
Oh, darn. Sorry, Pete.
No, but I think you're hitting the right things. Shadow of Doubt, Tom never misses. One of the things we're learning about these album fights as we do them is that the floor matters as much as the ceiling. And if your floor is built solidly, like Journey just doesn't miss. Their weakest song is anybody else's, hit. So the same thing with Tom. He's very, very good. This song is dated, but it has the kind of legs that matter. It still can be played on the radio, and I hear it all the time. When you go up against Wasted Time, though, you're going against. It's just they're outmatched. I think the Heartbreakers don't have enough for the versatility of the Eagles because of the harmonies. I mean, the harmonies missing from Tom Petty's stuff is just the Eagles have that tool, and they are pounding it into the Heartbreakers' face every time. I love, like you said, the sequencing, Scott, is really powerful here. You've had this reckless life and you're, let's say 35 years old, and all of a sudden the relationship is gone. Boom. And the lyric, you never thought you'd be alone this far down the line. Well, shit. That resonates with a lot of people who just kind of look around and go, man, where have I been? What's coming up next? Can I even be loved again? And Don Henley sells this. He's such a good singer. Everybody can identify with this. And I in particular loved his use of the toms in this song as he's drumming things out, because it just provides a depth to what the character of this song is. And for me, it's just better. It's not a whole lot better, but it is better. And I'm starting to worry about the Heartbreakers' ability to do enough in this very short album. Two 9-song albums. They're going to run out of time real quick. It's kind of like Mickey Ward. You're like, he can always do it. He can always punch you right in the liver and drop you to your knee. But he's getting beat up right now, and that's where the Heartbreakers are for me. I'm starting to worry that they'll be able to keep up.
Wow. So I had the Eagles winning all 3 of the first 3 rounds, so I have the same kind of worry. But I'm going to read from my scorecard, because I had Shadow of Doubt 10-9. The reason I did was because this is Tom Petty with his nice flat level swing and doing as much of it as he can, and he's at a stride in his career where his swing looks the best, and he hits a single over the second baseman that just looks like a guy who's doing what he does, and he's great at it. But every once in a while, I think about the judges at ringside, and they put their score down on their scorecard, and then they cheat, and they look over the judge next to him's shoulder, and they go, oh shit, Duran did throw more punches in that round, didn't he? So I'm kind of second-guessing my score, but I'm reading from the card. Shadow of Doubt reminds me of that somewhat mysterious girl that you messed around with on summer vacation, and that's what Tom Petty does for me. He reminds me of that time. He's from Gainesville, Florida. It's a town that's Florida enough, but it's more country, and I love that charm about him. I love that charm about where he's from, and I love that charm about this song. Wasted Time, it is wonderfully pensive, contemplative, sorrowful, and Don Henley does nail it. Man, he nails it. The composition is beautiful. I think I was pulled towards Tom Petty for the song that reminded me of Summer Vacation. So for that reason, I scored it 10-9 Shadow of Doubt, and now I have a shadow of doubt.
But that does speak to how close this fight is, John. Is, you know, we've got another very tough round coming up where it's not pretty. And these are the things that are going to make the difference in a fight like this, because there's just no room for error here now. It's like every round the stakes get higher because this album fight is so short. So I'm excited to see what you come up with next.
Well, round 5 is Century City versus Wasted Time Reprise. Because we're ratcheting up the stakes and we're getting into the second half of the fight, you do have to consider that, man, it's tight margins, and we're talking about, I mean, so far, I think Tom Petty is behind on all 3 of our cards, and he's already used up Refugee. So, the Heartbreakers in round 5 for me have a full head of steam now. I love the drum fills into the turnarounds that Stan Lynch provides in this song. Also, we get a little taste of honky-tonk Benmont tension. I love Benmont, man. He's in his element. It's pure rock and roll against a reprised classical arrangement, and all of the things that we love about Henley's vocals in Wasted Time, well, they're not here in round 5. And so for me, Century City wins, and it's terrible because this is really just, I don't want to say it's a throwaway song. It's not that, but it's really not a full-fledged song that's going up against the Tom Petty song like Century City. So this is almost like the round that Floyd Mayweather goes out there and all he does is take punches because he's just trying to size a guy up, tire him out a little bit, get a feel for his range, and he's not going to turn it on this round, and this round is a gimme. But it could make the difference in the fight. We'll see. What do you say, Scott?
Well, Century City is a great song, and it finishes off what is just an amazing side of music. When you you just put the LP on and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're wow. I mean, Century City, that's a frenetic song.
Yeah.
Now, I remember when Tom Petty first was coming up as an artist, people didn't know how to categorize him. Is this guy new wave? I mean, I heard new wave and punk both being used to describe Tom Petty.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, you're like, what the hell are you talking about?
Never would we think that now.
But exactly. But when you go back and you listen to Century City and the tempo of that song, I mean, that was one of the fastest songs he ever played, I think. And it would confuse people.
Yeah.
It was a great song. All right, but you're right. It is a mismatch here. I understand what they're trying to do with the reprise. They're trying to tie in Wasted Time to the second side of the LP to create some sort of a flow or a segue.
Yeah.
But if you're going up against Century City, and this is not a legit song standing by itself. They don't play Wasted Time Reprise on the radio as a song, right? They just don't.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even exist in today's era of sequencing with digital music and CDs, so it would just be part of Wasted Time. So to me, I scored it 10-8 as a knockout because Century City's a great song, and it's going up against a song that's really not a song.
Yeah, wow. Pete.
I disagree with you, Scott. I don't think Century City is a strong song. I think in a short fight like this, that this song is just not good. There's nothing. It's not a bad song. Let's first off understand that on any great album, but in our context, it just doesn't do anything compared to the other tracks that Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers deliver on this album. It's, for me, pedestrian, and the keys are good and the drumming is good and all of those things happen. This is the floor being the floor, but this is the floor of this album. It's not a strong representation of what the Heartbreakers can deliver. And they do get away from the rock and roll formula. There's a lot more words and a lot more of a story, but I don't have anything for this song. There's no article on Everpedia even yet for it, and we're going to have to fix that at some point. But when there's no one even talking about the song from the band, if no one's asked questions about it, and it's hard to find anybody even discussing it, that tells me that this song, in our context, just isn't that good. And I don't penalize the Eagles for using a reprise to bring something else in. It's a powerful tool for the era of albums, and I give them credit for it. This round for me is ugly. This is a whole bunch of hugging and guys trying to figure it out. Like John says, maybe the Eagles are eating some punches to wear out Tom Petty, and Tom Petty's throwing BS punches. I didn't like either one, and initially I scored this round a draw, and I thought, no, I've got to figure out which one's going to be better, and I found fewer things wrong with the reprise. I didn't penalize them for putting together a beautiful orchestral piece of music. I just said that, it's just not strong. But of the two weakest songs on the albums, it's the better one for me.
Wow. That blows my mind. That makes me feel like when we put something up against Dr. Dre's The Chronic, that somebody's thoughtful piece of work is going to lose to the $20 sack pyramid.
It's possible.
I'm not discounting the possibility. It is possible. All right. So I think it's interesting, though, that Scott brought up the finish of side one of the LP, because there's a whole generation of people who are never going to experience that's what it was. And what we love about a big finish on an album, and we've talked about it, and we will continue to talk about it, it makes a difference when you have a big finish. And the LP experience that we've had with both of these records, because we grew up with them, Scott, you made comments that aren't going to exist in a younger audience's evaluation of this record.
Yeah, you're right.
The tie-in for the reprise to side two, the big speed demon finish of side one for the Heartbreakers. That's a piece of the experience that we have that younger folks aren't going to have. Round 6. Don't Do Me Like That versus Victim of Love. Here's a big round. Pete?
Yeah, this is a big round. Victim of Love is a great song. It's the Eagles doing what the Eagles do. And I don't care what Randy Messner says or does. Don's going to out-sing him on this song any day of the week. And if Glenn Frey and Don decide that's who's going to sing it, then they've proven that they know what to do. And I know that gives some people heartburn in the Eagles family, but it doesn't give it to me. I think Don is the guy that delivers this song. And what I did think about was this song is actually a very, very good Heartbreakers song. If you were to put this on the other side in the other ring, I think the Heartbreakers outplay the Eagles on this song. It just suits them more. It's a song that just doesn't quite get there for me. Even as much as I love it, I think Tom Petty and his fellas could play it better versus Don't Do Me Like That, which is also a song that it was supposed to be written for Jay Giles' band, and Jimmy Iovine's like, the fuck if it is, you guys play this song. This is a hit. And it's also a great Jay Giles band song if Jay Giles band gets it. But Jimmy was smart, didn't let the fellas do that, and Tom Petty and the boys deliver. I think the keys, I think the lead guitar from Campbell are all fantastic. Everything in this thing is great. It's tight. It's 2 minutes, 42 seconds. This time I like the formula. And I think maybe A Victim of Love was shorter. It just kept going on and on and on. It was like a bad SNL sketch where, like, how do you end this thing well? And that doesn't happen here in Don't Do Me Like That. They get in, they get out, they nail it down, and everything about rock and roll that's great is this right here. Also, I love the way that Tom Petty says the word hurt in the song. It just has that ache in it, and I love it. I went Heartbreakers 10-9.
Well, Don't Do Me Like That was the first single off of this album. And you're right, Pete. It was interesting that it almost ended up in the hands of the Jay Giles band. And I can imagine they would have done a good job with the song.
Yeah.
Because of their style. But what it does is allows Tom Petty to show us a slightly different, varied sound than we're hearing on all the songs on side one. So again, I'm back to my little dinosaur viewpoint of looking at side one versus side two. But if you take the first 5 songs and you listen to Don't Do Me Like That, it has this different sound, almost like it might have been recorded in Memphis. Has this sort of Stax Volt kind of feel to it for me.
Oh, man.
And it changes. It changes the way I look at the album, because now he's starting to open up his arsenal a little bit, and I think he feels confident. Now, I think the confidence was given to him by Jimmy Iovine, because he's the one who saw the greatness in Tom Petty, right? Some producers give you the sound that you want, and other producers see the greatness in drive you to new places. I think he was driven to a new place with Don't Do Me Like That. He had it as an old Mudcrutch song, right? Pre-Heartbreakers, but it never went anywhere.
Yeah.
Until Jimmy Iovine got a hold of it and said, hey, this is our first single.
Wow.
And look at the success it had. So it was a great song. Now, Victim of Love, this is interesting on Hotel California. We're getting into a streak of songs here on Hotel California where Don Henley and Glenn Frey are giving some songs to the other guys in the band. This was actually Don Felder's song. And the history with Victim of Love is that Felder was going to do lead vocals on it when they started recording this song. It was his song, but he sung the vocals so poorly that Don Henley had to take over. So it's an okay song. The Eagles are very good musicians, and they've got the rock and roll formula down, but to me, this is too formulaic. It's the third best rock and roll song on the album. I don't think it can come anywhere close to taking down Don't Do Me Like That, so I'm going 10-9 for Heartbreakers.
Wow. I'm going to rewind for just a second, because New Kid in Town, the thing that I didn't mention in all my emotional tyings with that song was that song for me won the round before the verse began because of the musical conversation that happened. And Don't Do Me Like That is the same thing. I think they won this round before a word was spoken. Just because that opening is so strong, and I think that what you alluded to, and this is really, it points to the greatness of Jimmy Iovine, because he was able to see what you refer to about Tom Petty, and this was the second album that he ever produced. So his ability to have that vision and know to stay true to it, either it hit him really, really hard, which is very possible, or he had just incredible vision. Whichever one of those things happened, I think that if he took Don't Do Me Like That and said, this is our first single, and fed it to the band, I think to give the band credit, they took the song, they nurtured it, they grew it, they put it in a place where its beginning was a great musical conversation and a great collaboration. Such a strong song. Again, Benmont with the B3, with the little trills, the syncopated beginning. It's a classic opening in rock and roll that has very few peers in the category of classic openings. And then it follows up with a great verse, a great chorus that they continue to build on, and then an amazing bridge. And not enough songs don't even have bridges anymore. And so when you've got
right.
a song like this that's got such a great bridge, this is almost like a songwriter saying, I'm going to write a great, great song, and in the middle of it, I'm going to take you to a different place that's equally great. You're not even going to see it coming. Then I'm going to bring you back to the song, and you're going to go, what in the hell was that? So this is the 5-course seafood meal at McCormick and Coletto's, where they hit you in the middle with a lobster pizza or something where you go, what even was that? I'm going 10-9, Don't Do Me Like That, and I think you're right in your comment, Scott, where you said that this is Tom Petty opening up. He's opening up now. The interesting thing is that I had the Eagles winning the first 3 rounds, and now through round 6, I'm at a tie.
Yeah, that's right. Here comes Tom Petty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys are right. We're seeing Tom open up and hit a gear, and this is what keeps this fight close. I mean, here we are halfway through, and we all score this fight very closely thus far. So a little bit of difference here and there, but let's see what happens in these last 3 songs.
Oh, boy. Okay, round 7. You Tell Me versus Pretty Maids in a Row. the thing that I found interesting about this is that Sheryl Crow was really strongly influenced by the LA songwriting movement, right? So Jackson Browne, Don Henley, Stephen Stills, the whole Joni Mitchell, all of that, and the amount of influence that came from the Eagles sort of, well, I keep using the word movement, but the Eagles movement in songwriting that they were a part of in LA, the whole Topanga Canyon movement. And Sheryl Crow built a career on that. The funny thing is, when I hear You Tell Me, I hear A Change Will Do You Good. And that I found very, very interesting because it's a straight line for me from Tom Petty to Sheryl Crow. Anyway, You Tell Me also had Donald Duck Dunn, may he rest in peace, and when you've got him on your song, when he says, wait, I have something to contribute, you let the duck do his thing. I'm at the point in these albums where I'm sort of waiting for the Eagles to kick it in gear now that Tom Petty has opened it up. So Pretty Maids, All in a Row, is one too many mid to slow tempo songs in a row for me, and so I scored it 10-9, You Tell Me.
So You Tell Me is, well, I agree with what you said, John. It's a little bit different as change-up song again for Petty. He, Don't Do Me Like That was a different sound than side one. And then You Tell Me, it's a slower, more brooding song, more in a blues direction for me. But it's a really strong song. Now, it's going up against Pretty Maids All in a Row. Now, you mentioned earlier that you've fallen in love again with Joe Walsh. I've also been a huge Joe Walsh fan for decades. Love his body of work going back to the James Gang. In 1976, Joe Walsh was not in a good phase of his life. He had a 4-year-old daughter die in a car accident a couple of years earlier. Yeah. And it basically drove him into a deep spiral. 1976 was not a very creative period for him in context of Joe Walsh's career and what he could have brought to the Eagles at this particular time. He brought this song, which I think is a pretty weak song for him. He was given an opportunity to really pick up this album in the second half and drive it towards being one of the great, great records, which it still is. But to me, this is a forgettable Joe Walsh song. It's a dud, and You Tell Me takes a 10-9 win.
I love it. I love it. You're so wrong, Scott.
That's the great thing about an album battle.
Yeah. No, but look, so the one main note that I want to start off with is when you measure things, and these albums are both so great, you're getting down to 10,000ths of a second. Yeah. It's like in Super G alpine skiing, where it's like the bend of the tip of your ski is just ahead of the other person's very front edge. There's no difference. These are two incredible albums. You can play any of them at any given time, and you're going to love the experience. But since we're going to get this nitty and gritty, it's going to be things like you said, where you're like, I wish Joe Walsh would have done something else. And I love what Joe brings to this thing. And this is Joe getting up and going, like Don Henley tags out, and Glenn Frey's like, yeah, let's give Joe a shot. And unlike Felder, Joe, I think, delivers. He's like, I don't have to do the crazy, high-pitched anxiety songs that I normally do. I'm gonna slow this thing down and give you something lovely, especially after the frenetic first side. That's where Joe's song would normally go, but this backside is a little more reflective. And it just sells me on the whole album, the ability to do this, to change gears in this way, to have Joe Walsh go, look, I'm not just this dangerous guy that tears up hotel rooms. I'm also this sensitive guy that only comes out because his daughter, passes, and it gives him a moment to see his art in another lens. And I love that vulnerability that comes out in this song. I just think it's great. I wrote down, I want to be a trucker and drive the Great Western States to this whole album. I just think it's such a great body of work. And on the other side of the ring, You Tell Me is a good song. I love Ronnie Blair Taking Us for a Walk. This is featuring the bass, and we do get to see some of the Heartbreakers doing things, and I love it. And when these two songs come together, I do think you see the separation between the brilliance of the Eagles versus the greatness of Tom Petty. And trying to decide which one of those things is better. It's like trying to focus your eyes on two things that are doing two things at once, and you can't decide which one to watch on. My eye tends to drive towards the Eagles when you put them together like this. So for me, this is a 10-9 round, but only because I have to pick something, because I love both of these songs.
This is the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, and you're at like page 48, and you keep flipping back to page 46. 48, 46. 48, 46, and you go, man, I like 48 better because she's taller. But 46. Anyway, round 8. What Are You Doing in My Life versus Try and Love Again? And again, I'm at a point in the album where the Eagles, I hate to say this because, and I'm going first because I don't want to allow you guys to talk me out of this, and I have a feeling that I'm going to have another shadow of doubt. But Try to Love Again, for me, it's time to pick it up, guys. I need you to pick it up. And What Are You Doing in My Life? It's less that What Are You Doing in My Life won, and more that Try and Love Again lost this round. For me, I need them to turn it around and get there. I think What Are You Doing in My Life is almost like that. Now that Tom Petty is wide open and he's doing things and he's throwing so much variety at us. I mean, we saw him as a rock and roll songwriter and player in the first half of the record, and in the second half of the album where we're seeing a variety of things. And now what I think this is a double steal that confused the defense and turned into a bunt single, and now the bases are loaded. What just happened? Was that a bunt single? Well, it happened, and I think that that's what happened here for me. What do you say, Pete?
I enjoy Tom Petty's song, and it's great. It's another great song where where you're talking about these girls and everything else. And it reminded me of Tupac's song "Same Hoes" with Nate Dogg and Snoop Dogg when they're out there talking. And Snoop, in one of the lines in that song, says, "I see the same bitch in the Million Man March," and that's fun. I love it. It cracked me up because you are going to see the same girls town after town, or the same groupies in different regions, and this song kind of reminded me of that. And it's funny, but ultimately I love what the Eagles do. Everybody's getting their shot on this album because you have to do that, and this is them featuring their bass player, and it's excellent. And it's just, for me, a tender song. And again, we're on the tender side of the album, and it talks about love being inexorable. It's unescapable. I mean, you have a fight, but you already know that you're coming back, and those things resonate with me because it takes the album from a totally different side on the front side to the back side. This, for me, sequencing beats out the hilarity of the Same Hoes link that I made with What Are You Doing in My Life? Thank you.
That's a great link, though, Pete.
Yeah.
I wish I could have come up with something to link up to that
kidding.
song.
Boy,
That was as entertaining as that.
That's staying in.
Well,
okay.
Well, I probably shouldn't say much about What Are You Doing in My Life. I mean, it's a funny song, right? It's a song about a girl who won't stop bugging him, chasing him all around. His girlfriend's not happy about that. So, you go away and stop bothering me. Good tune, though.
Yeah.
But I'm with Pete on Try and Love Again. So, Randy Meisner was really the forgotten man in the Eagles. And he wrote some very good songs for them. Take It to the Limit came out on their previous album, and it was a huge song for them. But I think he was in a point in his life where he needed to bail out of the band. This was his swan song for the Eagles. He left them with a great tune. And, when you're talking about going over the top and destroying yourselves and picking yourself up, and he's talking about something that's completely different, right? I mean, it's just, there's optimism in the song lyrics that you don't see in the remaining songs on this album necessarily. There's this optimism that just has always captured me on this song. So again, my personal views are probably hard to repress on thinking about this song, but he has a great, great voice, and I think that really carries this song like it did with Take It to the Limit. It's just an excellent song, great voice, and I mean, it redeems the second side musically for me on Hotel California.
Well, fellas, that's why I went first. God damn it. Because that's true. You know, now that you guys have said that, it's almost like that home run that Travis Ishikawa hit in St. Louis. It's like, I know I'm not coming back, but I'm going to take a big hack, and holy shit, it worked. I'm going to take this trot, and I'm going to love this uniform, but I know I'm not coming back. So here, high fives, everybody. I'm going to leave you with this. And maybe that just happened in our imagination because we're in round 8, and maybe this was the first song that they recorded. I'm not sure. But it was that for Randy Meisner, and he is a forgotten part of the Eagles that, well, we didn't forget him. And he's gotten a couple royalty checks, so he's all right.
Few. Absolutely.
But, you know, I think it gave Timothy B. Schmidt a chance at a career that he would never have had in Poco. So that was the band he was in before, right?
Yeah, that's right.
The other thing one thing that you're missing out on, John, that I'm going to point out is that this is one of those songs that gets you laid. And, you know, the love, the slow jam, and I think absolutely this is one of those tunes that like that. And you know how we like that. We like to hit when bands get us laid. So, oh, man. Big points when someone can do that for you.
That and the comment about the optimism of this song, I think, is very important because that's one of the get you laid things. It's like the ability to say that, you know, hey, I'm going to do it again. Even though my heart's been broken, I'm coming back. And there is something to that, and we do like songs that get us laid. So that was good. But again, I'm going back to my scorecard because I already scored it. Round 9, big round. Louisiana Rain versus The Last Resort. Scott?
Well, I have to tell you that when I first scored these albums, I came up with my vote, and then I slept on it, and I woke up the next day and had just a completely different opinion about my vote.
Oh, man.
But I feel real good about it nonetheless. I've slept on it twice now, and we're all good. So The Last Resort, I mean, it was a huge, bombastic finisher. And that happened a lot with albums in the 70s. You stick a really big song at the end.
Yeah.
Right? Freebird's not the first song on its album, right? It's the ending song. It leaves you absolutely exhausted and maybe electrified and whatever. Well, when I went back and really started to think about The Last Resort, I mean, it kind of made me want to curl up in a fetal position, honestly. So here, what we're beginning to see here is the beginning of Don Henley's preaching social commentary that we see in a lot of his albums in the 80s and beyond when he had a solo career. And I know what he's trying to tell us. He's trying to give us a little history lesson, but in the way he does it, it just drains all the energy out of me. So that's what The Last Resort has really come to mean for me. And I just didn't think it was a great way to end the record. I look at Louisiana Rain, and it's an old Mudcrutch song that Jimmy Iovine brought back out and said, you guys are going to do this one. And, you know, the Eagles had always been compared, they were country rock when they first started their band, and that's kind of the song that Louisiana Rain is. It's got a huge southern influence to it, and Tom Petty does a fantastic job on this song. It's slowed down the tempo to close out the record, and if you look, it kind of became a formula for Petty on his next few records. His closing song was a ballad or a much slower song.
Yeah.
And I think he was always trying to outdo Louisiana Rain, and I don't think he ever was able to pull that off. So as I go back and review the history of his album closers, Louisiana Rain, it stands out, and it stands the test of time for me. So it takes a 10-9 win over The Last Resort, as big and bombastic as it was.
I should have gone first. Pete.
I'm glad to go ahead and go. Scott, you couldn't be more wrong.
I'm the perfect guest, right?
This is why we do this stuff.
Point counterpoint.
I appreciate everything you're saying, Scott, and I completely appreciate why you say it, and I love that you're on here doing it. This is why we do these fights. Whether or not you're wrong or right, it's really irrelevant. We got to talk about Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and the Eagles for the last hour, and I loved doing the work. This is why we do this. This is always about enjoying each other's company, enjoying great music. We don't pick things that we hate. We pick things that we love. And so, that's sort of the disclaimer that we throw in somewhere in every show, and I felt like this is a good time to do it. For me, this fight was over a while back. The Eagles are just better in this album for me than Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers are. And this is it. Like, you have a recycled song from the Mudcrutch days, and it's okay. It's a good song. It's Tom Petty doing what Tom Petty does well. But when you look, take Louisiana Rain and put it on the other side of the ring, and the Eagles are gonna do it better instantly. They're gonna add in harmonies, and in that case, that song just got a lot better. The ability of the Eagles to all find their own place in a song, regardless of the song, nobody's outworking the other one. They have a balance. And I think Heartbreakers do that well, but I think the Eagles bring more of those tools to the table, especially in this case with the harmonies. And so Louisiana Rain could have been figured out better, but it wasn't. And so for me, it was a little plodding and could have been better. It was not a great way to finish an album. On the other hand, you have this beautiful song that talks about more important things. We've gone from life in the fast lane, cocaine and pills, to, hey, rich people in Malibu buying houses. I mean, they're parodying themselves and Tom. This is what we've done. We've all moved to Malibu. We've moved to the Beverly Hills, and we aren't doing this right. We need to be more accountable. And someone that's going to take their platform and put that out there and say, let's all pay attention that this isn't just party and loves and that kind of thing. That there are important things to do. I've got time for that. I've got the ability to take that thing, and the lyric is good, and Don Henley's singing is incredible. And I listened. I try to listen to the original recording of everything, but I did. But then I went back over and I listened to the Hell Freezes Over session, because that whole unplugged session is incredible. And Don Henley's version of this song, it's only gotten better and more poignant. And I'm a huge fan of when you write a song and it lasts 20 years into the future, like Biz Markie or KRS, whoever wrote, The Sound of the Police. Like, that song is still resonating today. When you're, as an artist, when you're able to put your song that far into the future, it matters. And this song does that for me, and I like it. So I closed out the fight with 10-9 for the Eagles.
I feel like I'm sitting between Gore Vidal and who was that guy he always used to have it out with? Shit. It just left me. Anyway. Pete, you have no idea what you're talking about. The funny thing is, I have the same sentiment that Scott described for Louisiana Rain. I have that sentiment for Last Resort. In spite of the fact that Don Henley's preachiness kind of got annoying in the 80s. And I feel like, the other thing is, The Last Resort is really about all those things you described, Pete, but really the only one of all of those songwriters who's like living off the grid and eating granola is Jackson Browne. Meanwhile, Don Henley just bought another private plane. Mm-hmm. And so I had The Last Resort because it surprised me. I was waiting for them to kick it into gear, and they never kicked it into gear. In fact, they did the opposite. They said, no, we're going to go with a grand ballad to finish it off. And so your description of Louisiana Rain, Scott, is how I felt about The Last Resort. They went ballad, and I went, oh, maybe I was wrong about that. Maybe they didn't need to kick it into gear. So I chose The Last Resort. Louisiana Rain did do those things. I have a feeling similar to Pete's in that they could have done more with that song with a different toolbox, but they maximize the tools in their toolbox, and they celebrate the tools in their toolbox, and I do love that about Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. In fact, that's the thing that I love about them the most. They decided on a lane, and they owned that lane, and they never tried for a minute. They grew and they evolved, but they never tried for a minute to do hey, let's do a pop record, or, disco's real big. What we should do is have a disco song. They stayed true to themselves. So did the Eagles. But when we tally it all up, I had, by the narrowest of margins, 86-85, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, damn the Torpedoes.
Yeah, and the final analysis for me, where I said earlier that I thought New Kid in Town was the most honest song on the record, I thought The Last Resort was the least honest song on the record, because when Henley starts talking about these things, well, you look around and go, Jesus, this guy probably owns 15 buildings in Malibu overlooking the Pacific Ocean. What the hell?
Yeah.
Right? It left me with a feeling that I didn't really trust what he was singing about in that song. So to me, and it made a big difference in me, because originally I scored this a tie. And then when I rethought about it and woke up the next day and rethunk The Last Resort and changed my decision on that and feel good about it, then that's how I came up with an 86, 84 for Heartbreakers.
Wow.
Well,
Pete?
This is exciting. So, first off, I appreciate again you coming on the show with us, Scott. And shame on you for not scoring in the moment. You're not supposed to. You don't get to do that. You judge it at the moment with
Next
what
time
you
I
saw,
won't sleep.
not just to sleep on it. But you did, and I'll accept it, because let's be honest, that's part of the fun. But how fun would a split decision have been right here? Because I have this being a pretty solid victory for the Eagles, 88-84. I don't have any knockdowns, but I don't fault the knockdowns that were recorded. I do see how Century City over the wasted time reprise can happen. But 88-84 for me, I am the lone Eagles person. So this is, though it is a split decision, not a draw, it is a majority decision towards Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And who would have thought that it would be that close, and legitimately could have gone any number of ways. It's exciting to be able to do this, and it's really neat. I will say for Richard, because he started off with some great analysis, he came down to a razor's edge 85-84 also for Tom Petty. So I guess, should we announce the next fight, John, while we're sitting here talking?
He's really smart, that
you
Richard.
Guys, I got to bring somebody else in to be the other guy, because he keeps siding with you and making me look bad.
If either of these albums were ordered differently, it could have changed the outcome.
That's what's so fascinating about how songs are sequenced, and then, they never knew we'd be doing these album battles, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Had
who
no idea
knew this would happen?
That our dumbasses would be doing this way. Analyzing these bodies of work the way that they shook them out. I mean, they're sitting in the studio. Can you imagine Tom Petty, looking at the guys and saying, hey, we really need to pick it up around round 6, because we're falling behind here.
You got to dig deep. Louisiana rain ain't good enough.
That's right.
Yeah. Jimmy Iovine's got a ice bag on the back of your neck. Come on, kid. Are you going to be the champion or not?
Well, thanks again, Scott, for making Pete look bad.
Well, hey, my pleasure, John. And Pete,
absolutely.
no hard feelings, my
all.
friend.
We absolutely have to do this again. Pete, do you want to announce our next fight?
We went ahead and thought we'd just go ahead and do an epic Titan on Titan fight. Inspiration begats inspiration. So we're going to go Beach Boys' Pet Sounds versus Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band from the Beatles.
Scott just fell back in his
my
chair.
God, the eyes just rolled back in my eyes. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I can hardly wait to hear that one.
Ouch. Wow.
Mike LaPerry,
Whose
he's
idea
going
was
to be
that?
our guest judge. Mike is a lifelong friend of mine, and I can't wait to put him on the mic and do it.
Mike LaPerry. I think this is one of those ones where we really had thought about staving it off. When you think of this album fight concept, and I'm not sure if this dawned on you, Scott, but when one of the very first things that we knew we were going to have to get to was Pet Sounds versus Sgt. Pepper.
Absolutely.
We just didn't think that we would get to it so quickly. And I think we might as well do it. The funny thing for me is I think we should wait a year and do it again.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, that's a big fight. I also want to shout out your lovely bride, Gina Burford, who gave you a free weekend because she's up visiting Evan.
That's right. Thank you.
So, yeah, here you are, and we got to do this together. I'm sure we would have done it anyway if she was in town, but it's perfect that she wasn't because you got to listen to these two records really, really loud last night, I'm sure.
I've been listening to them nonstop for the last 2 days, and it's been really fun.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate the opportunity to just dig deep into these albums and just get completely in over my head with them. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, well, we'll do another one soon.
Absolutely. Thank
All right.
you.